Imagine this. You're about to discover the most incredible survival story that's been hidden for 40,000 years. A story so powerful, so filled with secrets and mysteries that once you hear it, you'll never look at winter the same way again. You'll never feel truly cold without remembering the people who survived the impossible. Tonight, we're not just talking about cavemen, we're talking about the greatest survival experts who ever lived. People who faced winters so brutal they would kill a modern human in hours. People who didn't just survive, they thrived. They laughed. They loved. They created art that still takes our breath away. And they did it all while the world tried to freeze them to death. But here's what the history books won't tell you. There were secrets, dark secrets, controversial methods, things that would shock you about how they really survived. And by the end of tonight's journey, you'll know them all. Before we dive into this incredible story, I want you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will change how you think about human resilience forever. And trust me, you'll want to come back for more stories like this. Also, drop a comment and tell me, where are you listening from? Are you cozy in bed? Walking in the cold? I love connecting with fellow adventure seekers from around the world. Now let me ask you something that might disturb you. What if everything we've been told about Ice Age humans is wrong? What if they weren't the primitive, struggling creatures we imagine? What if they were so advanced, so ingenious, that we've actually lost some of their survival skills? Tonight, you're going to discover the truth. And it starts with one simple, terrifying fact. The winter that almost ended humanity forever. Chapter 1. The Last Refuge Picture. This scene that archaeologists discovered, but most people never hear about. Scattered across a cave floor in Germany, they found the bones of an entire family. Men, women, children. But here's the shocking part. They weren't killed by predators or disease. They died of cold, in their own shelter, with food nearby, with tools, with fire materials. How is that possible? How could survival experts who had lived through countless winters suddenly fail? The answer reveals the first dark secret of Ice Age survival. Even the experts could get it wrong, and when they did, entire bloodlines vanished forever. You see, we like to imagine that ancient humans just naturally knew how to survive, but the truth is far more terrifying. Every single day was a gamble with death. Every decision could mean the difference between your children seeing spring or becoming forgotten bones in a cave. But here's what's truly mind-blowing. Despite these impossible odds, some families didn't just survive one winter. They survived dozens, hundreds. They passed down secrets that kept their people alive through the worst climate disasters our planet has ever seen. What were these secrets? How did they do the impossible? The first secret is so simple yet so genius that when modern survival experts tried to replicate it, half of them failed miserably. Are you ready for this? They didn't just prepare for winter. They prepared for the winter after the winter after the winter. While most animals and even some human groups thought season by season, the survivors thought in generations. Here's proof that will blow your mind. Archaeologists have found food caches buried so deep and preserved so well that they contained enough meat to feed a family for 3 years. 3 years! Imagine having the discipline to bury food when you're hungry, knowing you might not even be alive to use it. But there's something even more shocking about these food caches. Something that suggests these Ice Age humans understood psychology better than we give them credit for. The caches weren't just practical, they were emotional insurance policies. Because when you're trapped in a shelter for weeks, when the wind sounds like screaming demons, when children are crying from hunger, reaching into a buried treasure of preserved meat didn't just feed the body, it fed hope. But wait, if they were so good at planning, why did some families still die with food nearby? This brings us to the second dark secret, and it's one that might make you uncomfortable. Survival wasn't just about resources, it was about psychology, and sometimes the mind broke before the body did. Recent analysis of Ice Age sites has revealed something disturbing. Some families who had everything they needed, food, fire, shelter, simply gave up. The evidence? Tools abandoned mid-task, fires that were allowed to die, food left uneaten. What could break the human spirit so completely that people would choose death over survival? The answer leads us to one of the most controversial theories in archaeology, and it's about to change everything you think you know about why some humans survived the Ice Age while others didn't. But first, I have to ask you something. Are you starting to see why this story is so powerful? Are you beginning to understand why these survival secrets matter even today? If so, smash that like button, because we're just getting started, and what comes next will absolutely blow your mind. Coming up, we're about to discover the most shocking building technique in human history. A technique so effective that when modern engineers tried to replicate it, they called it impossible. But 40,000 years ago, children were building structures that could withstand hurricanes using nothing but bones and willpower. Chapter 2: Secrets of the Bone. Architects. What I'm about to tell you sounds like fiction, but it's backed by solid archaeological evidence that's been quietly revolutionizing our understanding of Ice Age intelligence. In Ukraine, at a site called Mazirich, scientists discovered something that shouldn't exist. Massive domed structures, perfectly engineered, weatherproofed, and designed to last for decades. But here's the kicker: they were built entirely from mammoth bones. We're not talking about a few bones leaned against a tree. We're talking about architectural masterpieces. Domes 24 feet across, made from skulls, tusks, jawbones, and leg bones, all fitted together with the precision of a Swiss watch. When modern engineers examined these structures, they were stunned. The weight distribution was perfect. The ventilation system was genius. The structural integrity could withstand winds that would level a modern house. But here's what will really blow your mind. Recent analysis suggests these weren't just shelters, they were the world's first apartment buildings. Multiple families, separate living areas, shared common spaces, built 15,000 years before we invented writing. How is this possible? How did primitive humans design and build structures that modern architects call masterpieces? The answer reveals a shocking truth about Ice Age intelligence that most people never learn. These weren't cavemen stumbling around trying to survive. These were engineers, mathematicians, architects. But there's something even more incredible about these bone buildings. Something that suggests Ice Age humans understood concepts we're only rediscovering today. They were earthquake-proof. That's right. 40,000 years ago, humans in Siberia were building structures with flexible joints that could absorb ground tremors. They understood that rigid structures break, but flexible ones bend and survive. Modern earthquake engineers use the same principles today. We call it base isolation and flexible design. They just called it not dying when the earth shakes. But here's where it gets really controversial. Some researchers believe these architectural techniques were too advanced to develop naturally. They think there was a lost civilization, a group of Ice Age humans who achieved a level of sophistication that we've dramatically underestimated. The evidence? Tool marks on bones that suggest precision instruments we didn't think existed. Mathematical ratios in the construction that mirror advanced geometric principles. And most shocking of all, evidence of blueprint planning. That's right, scratches on stone tablets that appear to be architectural drawings. made 30,000 years before the first known written language. What if Ice Age humans weren't primitive at all? What if they were so advanced that we've lost their knowledge? What if the Stone Age was actually a golden age of human ingenuity that we're only now beginning to understand? This theory is so controversial that many archaeologists refuse to discuss it publicly. But the evidence keeps mounting, and it's about to get even more shocking. Because these bone architects didn't just build better shelters than anyone thought possible, they solved the greatest challenge of Ice Age survival: how to stay warm without burning all your fuel. The secret was thermal mass. Those massive mammoth skulls weren't just structural elements, they were heat batteries. During the day, fires would warm the bones. At night, the bones would slowly release that heat, keeping the shelter warm for hours without burning a single stick of wood. Genius? Absolutely. But there's something else about these structures that's been troubling archaeologists for decades. They were too good. Most Ice Age shelters show signs of constant repair, modification, emergency fixes, but these mammoth bone masterpieces, they look like they were built once and lasted for generations without major maintenance. How did they achieve this level of perfection? What knowledge did they have that we've lost? The answer might disturb you, because it suggests that maybe our ancestors weren't climbing up from primitiveness. Maybe they were falling down from greatness. Are you starting to question everything you thought you knew about human history? Good, because we're about to explore the most sacred and mysterious aspect of Ice Age survival. Something so powerful that it might have been the difference between civilization and extinction. Hit that like button if this is blowing your mind. And get ready, because coming up next, we're diving into the secret rituals around fire that archaeologists are afraid to talk about publicly. Chapter 3: The Sacred Flame Keepers. What I'm about to share with you is based on recent archaeological discoveries that have been quietly challenging everything we thought we knew about Ice Age spirituality. And I have to warn you, some of this might sound unbelievable, but every detail is backed by hard evidence that's been found buried in Ice Age sites across Europe and Siberia. Here's a question that's been haunting archaeologists. Why did some groups maintain fire for hundreds of years, while others died in the cold with plenty of fuel nearby? The answer isn't what you'd expect. It wasn't about skill or resources. It was about belief, about rituals so powerful they literally kept people alive. Recent excavations in Czech Republic uncovered something extraordinary. A hearth that had been continuously maintained for over 200 years. 2 centuries, 8 generations, 1 fire. But here's what makes this discovery so controversial. Surrounding this ancient hearth, archaeologists found evidence of complex rituals, arranged animal bones, carved figurines, stone circles, and most shocking of all, human burials positioned to face the fire, even in death. This wasn't just a campfire, it was a sacred flame, a religious center, the heart of an Ice Age civilization that we're only now beginning to understand. But why were these fire rituals so important? What made some groups treat fire like a god while others treated it like a tool? The answer reveals one of the most profound survival secrets of the Ice Age. Psychology was more important than physics. Belief was more powerful than tools. Think about it. You're trapped in a shelter for months. Outside, the wind howls like demons. Inside, smoke stings your eyes. Children are crying, adults are arguing, everyone is hungry, cold, and terrified. What keeps you going? What prevents you from giving up? For many groups, it was the sacred flame, the belief that as long as the fire burned, they were protected, connected to their ancestors, guaranteed to survive. Modern psychologists call this locus of control, the belief that you have power over your circumstances, even when everything seems hopeless. Ice Age humans discovered this thousands of years before we gave it a name, and they turned it into a survival strategy so powerful that it might have saved our species. But here's where it gets really controversial. Some of these fire rituals included practices that would shock modern sensibilities. Animal sacrifice, blood offerings, and yes, there's evidence suggesting human sacrifice during the worst blizzards. Now, before you judge them, consider this. When the choice is between sacrificing one person to boost the morale of 50, or watching all 50 people lose hope and die, what would you do? This is the dark side of Ice Age survival that nobody talks about. The moral compromises, the impossible decisions, the prices paid for survival. Recent analysis of bone fragments found around sacred hearths has revealed cuts that didn't come from food preparation. They came from ritual killing, and the positioning of these bones suggests they were offerings to the fire itself. What drove people to such extreme measures? What kind of desperation would lead to human sacrifice in the name of keeping a fire alive? The answer lies in understanding just how sacred these flames were. These weren't just sources of heat and light, they were the souls of the community, the spirits of dead ancestors, the promise of future generations, and when the fire was threatened by lack of fuel, by moisture, by wind, the community would do anything to save it, including sacrifice. But here's what's truly remarkable: it worked. The groups that practiced these intense fire rituals had much higher survival rates than those who didn't. Was it because their rituals actually protected them? Or was it because their absolute commitment to the fire forced them to be more careful, more resourceful, more united? Modern survival psychology suggests it was both. The rituals created genuine practical benefits: constant attention to the fire, community cooperation, psychological resilience. But they also created something even more powerful: meaning. When survival becomes meaningless, people give up. When survival becomes sacred, people endure the impossible. This is why some groups could maintain fire for centuries while others died with fuel nearby. It wasn't about knowledge or resources, it was about why they were fighting to stay alive. But there's another aspect of these fire rituals that has been puzzling archaeologists. Something that suggests Ice Age humans understood advanced concepts about energy, spirituality, and even early chemistry. The sacred fires weren't just wood fires. They were carefully crafted fuel mixtures that burned differently than normal flames. Analysis has revealed traces of animal fat, specific herbs, and even powdered bones mixed into the fuel. Why? What were they trying to achieve? Some researchers believe they were creating psychoactive smoke, mild hallucinogens that helped people endure the psychological torture of months-long confinement. Others think they were experimenting with advanced chemistry, creating flames that burned longer, hotter, or cleaner than standard wood fires. But the most controversial theory suggests they were doing something else entirely. Something that modern science is only beginning to understand. They were manipulating consciousness itself. Sound crazy? Maybe, but the evidence keeps growing. And what we're discovering about Ice Age spiritual sophistication is about to challenge everything you think you know about human development. Are you ready to have your mind completely blown? Because coming up next, we're exploring the most controversial archaeological discovery of the century. Evidence that Ice Age humans might have been practicing advanced medical procedures that we didn't rediscover until the 1800s. But first, if this journey into hidden history is fascinating you, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what shocked you most so far. Chapter 4: Blood, Fat and Winter. Gold. I need to warn you, what you're about to learn will probably disturb you. but it's the truth about Ice Age survival that's been hidden in archaeological reports for decades. The truth about what people were willing to do and eat to stay alive when the world turned into a frozen hell. Let me start with a question that will make you uncomfortable. If you were starving, and your child was starving, and the only thing standing between life and death was eating something that disgusts you today, what would you do? Ice Age humans faced this choice constantly, and their answers reveal the most shocking survival secrets in human history. First, let's talk about fat. Not the fat we worry about in our diets today, but fat as the golden currency of Ice Age survival. Recent analysis of preserved Ice Age meals has revealed something that will blow your mind. Up to 80% of their winter calories came from pure animal fat. We're not talking about a little marbling in their meat. We're talking about chunks of pure fat, mammoth blubber, reindeer suet, bear grease. They ate it raw, they ate it cooked, they drank it melted. Why? Because fat contains more than twice the calories of protein or carbohydrates. In a world where every calorie was the difference between life and death, fat wasn't just food, it was liquid energy. But here's where it gets really shocking. They didn't just eat the fat from animals they hunted. Archaeological evidence shows they were harvesting fat from frozen corpses they found. Animal corpses. And yes, based on cut marks and bone analysis, probably human corpses too. I know that sounds horrific, but consider this. If you found a frozen mammoth that had died months ago, perfectly preserved by the cold, would you walk away and let your family starve? Or would you do whatever it took to harvest every calorie you could? Ice Age humans chose survival, and that choice created some of the most advanced food preservation techniques in human history. They developed a process that archaeologists call Ice Age canning, using animal stomachs as storage containers, filling them with rendered fat and preserved meat, then sealing them with natural waxes. These cans could be buried in permafrost and remain edible for years. But the fat wasn't just for eating. Recent discoveries have revealed that Ice Age humans were using animal fat for medicine, waterproofing, lamp fuel, and even what appears to be surgical lubrication. That's right. Evidence suggests they were performing surgery. 40,000 years ago, skeletons found in Ice Age sites show clear signs of successful bone setting, wound treatment, and even what appears to be primitive brain surgery. Cut marks on skulls that show healing, suggesting the patient survived operations that would challenge modern doctors. How is this possible? How did people with stone tools develop surgical techniques that we didn't rediscover until the Renaissance? The answer lies in understanding just how desperate survival could make people. When your choice is death or attempting the impossible, you attempt the impossible. And sometimes, miraculously, it works. But here's the most controversial part. Some evidence suggests they weren't just treating injuries, they were preventing them. Performing what we might call prophylactic surgery to prevent problems before they became fatal. Stone Age dentistry, that's right. Holes drilled in teeth to prevent infections. Abscesses drained with bone tools, teeth pulled and replaced with carved bone substitutes. The evidence is so clear that dental anthropologists have had to completely revise their assumptions about Ice Age medical knowledge. But all of this raises disturbing questions. If they had such advanced medical knowledge, why did so many still die? What were they battling that even surgery couldn't fix? The answer brings us to one of the darkest secrets of Ice Age survival. Cannibalism wasn't rare, it was routine. I know that's hard to hear, but recent analysis of bone fragments from multiple Ice Age sites has revealed cut marks that can only come from one source: humans butchering other humans for food. This wasn't ritual sacrifice, this wasn't warfare, this was survival cannibalism. Families eating their own dead to keep the living alive. And here's what's truly shocking: they were systematic about it, professional. Evidence suggests they had developed specific techniques for maximizing nutritional value from human corpses while minimizing psychological trauma for the survivors. They knew which parts of the body contained the most fat. They knew how to preserve human meat for long-term storage. They even knew how to prepare it in ways that disguised what it was. Modern forensic anthropologists studying these sites have found evidence of what they call compassionate cannibalism, techniques designed to help families survive the horror of eating their loved ones. Is this disturbing? Absolutely. Is it also proof of incredible psychological sophistication and survival intelligence? I think so. These people weren't monsters. They were desperate humans doing whatever it took to save their children and continue their bloodlines. And the fact that we're here today means their sacrifices worked. But there's one more aspect of Ice Age nutrition that's been puzzling scientists for decades. Something that suggests these people understood advanced biochemistry in ways we're only now beginning to appreciate. They were supplement makers. Analysis of Ice Age food remains has revealed evidence of systematic vitamin supplementation. Bone meal for calcium, liver powder for iron, specific plant extracts for nutrients we now know prevent scurvy and other deficiency diseases. How did they know which foods prevented which illness? How did they develop supplement techniques that we didn't rediscover until the 20th century? The answer might change everything you think you know about Ice Age intelligence. Because what we're discovering suggests they weren't just surviving randomly, they were practicing scientific nutrition. Coming up next, we're about to explore the most controversial mystery in human evolution. Why did Neanderthals, who were stronger, better adapted to cold, and had bigger brains, lose the survival battle to modern humans? The answer involves a secret weapon that changed the course of history forever. But first, if this deep dive into survival reality is keeping you hooked, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what would you be willing to do to save your family? Chapter 5: The Great Divide. 2 species, 1 winter. Here's a mystery that's been driving anthropologists crazy for decades. Neanderthals were everything you'd want in an Ice Age survivor. Stronger muscles, bigger brains, bodies perfectly designed for cold weather. They'd been surviving European winters for 200,000 years before modern humans even arrived. So why did they disappear? Why are we here instead of them? The traditional answer is that modern humans were smarter, more adaptable, better at making tools. But recent discoveries have shattered that comfortable assumption. And what we're learning about the real reason Neanderthals went extinct might shock you. It wasn't intelligence that made them or difference. It was something far more sinister. Let me start with facts that most people never hear. Neanderthal brains were actually larger than ours. Their tools were just as sophisticated as early human tools. They made art, buried their dead, cared for disabled group members, and survived in environments that would kill modern humans in hours. In fact, when it came to individual survival skills, Neanderthals were probably superior to modern humans in almost every way. So what happened? What gave modern humans the edge that led to Neanderthal extinction? The answer is so controversial that many researchers avoid discussing it publicly, but the evidence is mounting, and it points to a disturbing conclusion about human nature. Modern humans didn't outcompete Neanderthals, they eliminated them. Recent DNA analysis has revealed something shocking. Modern human and Neanderthal populations didn't just coexist peacefully and gradually diverge, they interbred extensively. Then suddenly, Neanderthal genetic markers begin disappearing rapidly from the fossil record. What could cause such a dramatic population crash? Climate change alone doesn't explain it. Neanderthals had survived multiple ice ages before. Disease is possible, but there is no evidence of pandemic-level illness. The most likely explanation is the one nobody wants to discuss: systematic extermination. Archaeological sites from the period when Neanderthals disappeared show disturbing patterns. Neanderthal remains with human-made weapon marks. Human sites built directly on top of abandoned Neanderthal settlements. Evidence of large-scale conflicts that always seem to end with Neanderthal populations vanishing. But here's what makes this even more shocking. Modern humans might not have won because they were better at survival. They might have won because they were better at warfare. This brings us to one of the most controversial discoveries in recent archaeology: evidence that modern humans developed the world's first weapons of mass destruction. I'm talking about coordinated group hunting techniques that could wipe out entire herds of animals in a single day. Techniques so effective that they might have caused the extinction of megafauna like mammoths and giant bears. But here's the terrifying part. There's evidence they used these same techniques on Neanderthals. Sites across Europe show patterns of Neanderthal camps surrounded by modern human hunting camps. Not trading camps, hunting camps, with the same tool marks and butchering patterns used for hunting large game. Were modern humans hunting Neanderthals like animals? The evidence is circumstantial but disturbing, and it suggests something dark about human nature that we'd rather not acknowledge. But there's another possibility, one that's even more controversial and might explain not just Neanderthal extinction, but the rapid advancement of human civilization. What if modern humans didn't just eliminate Neanderthals? What if they absorbed their knowledge? Recent genetic analysis shows that all non-African humans carry Neanderthal DNA. But more interesting is where that DNA is concentrated, in genes related to immune system function, cold adaptation, and brain development. It's as if modern humans selectively preserved the best Neanderthal traits while eliminating Neanderthal competition. This would explain something that's puzzled anthropologists for years: why human technological advancement accelerated so dramatically after Neanderthals disappeared. Did we steal their innovations? Did we learn from them before destroying them? Archaeological evidence suggests that many technologies we credit to modern humans, advanced stone tools, sophisticated hunting techniques, even early art, might have been developed first by Neanderthals and then adopted by humans. If this is true, then human civilization might be built on the greatest theft in history. We didn't just survive the Ice Age through our own ingenuity. We survived by taking the best ideas from our competition and then eliminating the competition. But here's what's really disturbing. Evidence suggests this pattern didn't stop with Neanderthals. As modern humans spread across the globe, everywhere they went, other human species disappeared. Denisovans in Asia, Homo erectus in Southeast Asia, Homo naledi in Africa, all gone within thousands of years of modern human arrival. Coincidence or pattern? The uncomfortable truth might be that modern humans became the dominant species, not because we were the best at surviving nature, but because we were the best at eliminating other humans. This isn't just ancient history. This pattern of human behavior, absorbing useful knowledge while eliminating competition, has continued throughout civilization. Colonial conquest, cultural assimilation, technological appropriation. Maybe the Ice Age didn't just teach us survival skills, maybe it taught us conquest skills. But there's one more twist to this story that changes everything. Recent analysis of the final Neanderthal sites has revealed something unexpected. They weren't losing the survival battle. In fact, some of the most sophisticated Ice Age technologies, advanced clothing, improved shelter design, better food preservation, appear in Neanderthal sites right before they disappeared. They weren't dying out because they couldn't adapt. They were thriving, They were innovating. They were getting better at survival every generation. So why did they disappear? The answer might be the most chilling revelation in all of human prehistory, and it's about to explain not just Neanderthal extinction, but the psychological forces that still drive human behavior today. Are you ready for a truth that might change how you see humanity itself? Because coming up next, we're diving into the darkest aspect of Ice Age survival. What happened to the children and why their story holds. The key to understanding everything about who we really are. Hit that like button if this is challenging everything you thought you knew about human evolution. Tour. Chapter 6. Whispers in the Dark. I need to prepare you for what you're about to hear. This chapter deals with the most heartbreaking aspect of Ice Age survival, but also the most important for understanding why we're here today. It's about the children, and I warn you, some of this will be difficult to hear, but it's also beautiful, because in the darkest moments of human history, something incredible happened that saved our species, something that only children could do. Let me start with a disturbing statistic. Archaeological evidence suggests that up to 70% of Ice Age children died before age 15. That means if you had 4 children, you expected to lose 3 of them. How do you live with that knowledge? How do you love someone when you know you'll probably have to bury them? The answer reveals one of the most profound survival secrets in human history, and it's about to explain why humans became the most emotionally sophisticated species on Earth. Ice Age parents didn't just love their children despite knowing they might lose them. They loved them because they knew they might lose them. Every day was precious. Every moment was a gift. Every smile, every laugh, every small achievement became sacred. This created something that anthropologists call intensive parenting, a level of emotional investment in children that was unprecedented in the animal kingdom. But here's what's truly remarkable. This intensive parenting didn't just help children survive, it created smarter children. Recent research in developmental psychology has shown that children who receive intense emotional attention develop larger brains, better problem-solving skills, and stronger social intelligence. Ice Age children weren't just surviving, they were becoming superhumans. Think about it. While modern children are sheltered from real danger, Ice Age children were facing life or death challenges from the moment they could walk. Every winter was a test. Every blizzard was an examination in survival skills. But unlike adult humans, who had to unlearn old habits when adapting to new challenges, children's brains were blank slates. They could develop survival instincts from scratch, perfectly adapted to Ice Age conditions. This created something unprecedented, children who were better at survival than their parents. Archaeological evidence supports this theory. Child-sized tools that show advanced craftsmanship, small shelters that demonstrate sophisticated engineering, even art created by children that displays techniques their parents never mastered. Ice Age children weren't just learning survival skills, they were inventing them. But here's where the story becomes truly heartbreaking. These super children faced a moral burden that no child should ever carry. They had to choose who lived and who died. During the worst blizzards, when food ran out and fuel ran low, someone had to make impossible decisions. Save the baby or the grandmother. Keep the fire burning or save the last food. Risk everything for one person or let them die to save the group. Evidence suggests that these decisions were often made by children, not because adults were cruel, but because children could make rational, surreal decisions without the emotional baggage that paralyzed adults. A 12-year-old could decide to let their sick baby brother die to save food for the healthy siblings. An adult parent couldn't. This created a generation of children with psychological capabilities that we can barely imagine. Children who understood death, sacrifice and survival at a level most modern adults never reach. But there's something else about Ice Age children that's been puzzling anthropologists for decades. Something that suggests they had abilities we've lost. They could predict weather, not just general patterns, but specific storms. Archaeological sites show evidence of winter preparations that began weeks before climate conditions suggested they were necessary. As if someone knew exactly when the next blizzard would hit. How is this possible? How could children with no scientific instruments predict weather more accurately than modern meteorologists? The answer lies in understanding what we've lost in our modern lives: total environmental immersion. Ice Age children didn't just live in nature, they were part of nature. They could sense changes in air pressure through their skin. They could hear changes in wind patterns that we can't detect. They could smell storms coming days before they arrived. These weren't magical abilities. They were survival skills developed through necessity and refined through generations of life or death application. But perhaps the most remarkable ability Ice Age children developed was psychological resilience. The ability to endure trauma that would break modern adults while continuing to function, learn and even thrive. How did they do it? How did children who watched siblings die, who ate human flesh to survive, who made life or death decisions while still learning to talk, how did they maintain their sanity? The answer reveals something beautiful about human nature, something that still exists in us today waiting to be awakened. They created meaning from suffering. Every death became a lesson, every sacrifice became a story, every survival became a miracle worth celebrating. Ice Age children didn't just endure trauma, they transformed it into wisdom. This is why human civilization advanced so rapidly after the Ice Age. Not because conditions became easier, but because we had developed psychological tools for turning any challenge into an opportunity for growth. But there's one more secret about Ice Age children that changes everything. Something that explains not just human survival, but human consciousness itself. They were the first philosophers. While adults were focused on immediate survival, children had mental space to ask deeper questions. Why do we suffer? What happens after death? What's the point of struggling to survive? And their answers to these questions became the foundation of human spirituality, morality, and meaning-making. Archaeological evidence shows that the earliest religious artifacts, the first art, the first music, were often created by children or featured children prominently. Children weren't just surviving the Ice Age. They were creating the psychological frameworks that would carry humanity into the future. Are you starting to see why this story matters? Why understanding Ice Age children is the key to understanding ourselves? Because those children didn't just survive. They evolved into us, every capacity for resilience, every ability to find meaning in suffering, every skill at adapting to impossible challenges. It all comes from them. We are their descendants, their survivors, their legacy. Coming up next, we're exploring the most ingenious survival inventions in human history. Tools so advanced that when modern engineers tried to recreate them, they called the results impossible. But 40,000 years ago, children were making them with their bare hands. If this journey into our deepest origins is moving you, hit that like button and tell me, what strength do you carry that might have come from these incredible ancestors? Chapter 7: The Children Who Shape Tomorrow. What I'm about to share with you will change how you see every child you've ever met. Because 40,000 years ago, children weren't just innocent bystanders in the human survival story. They were the secret weapon that saved our species. Here's a fact that will blow your mind. Some of the most sophisticated survival technologies in human history were invented by people under the age of 15. How do we know this? Size analysis of tool marks, bone development studies, even biomechanical analysis of how certain tools could only be operated by small hands. Ice Age children weren't playing with toys, they were creating the innovations that kept humanity alive. Let me give you a specific example that sounds impossible but is backed by solid archaeological evidence: the invention of the needle. We're not talking about crude bone tools, we're talking about precisely engineered sewing needles with eye holes so small they required advanced drilling techniques. Tools so sophisticated that when modern craftspeople try to replicate them using only Stone Age technology, most fail. Yet analysis of the grip patterns and force angles suggests these needles were made by children. Children with small fingers that could handle delicate work. Children with developing hand-eye coordination that actually gave them advantages over adults for precision tasks. Think about that. The tool that allowed humans to create fitted clothing, the technology that made Arctic survival possible, was invented by children. But that's just the beginning. Archaeological sites across Europe show evidence of child-invented technologies that would make modern engineers weep with envy. Flexible joints for shelter construction, ventilation systems that could regulate airflow without losing heat, even primitive mechanical advantage systems, early pulleys and levers that allowed small people to move massive mammoth bones. How did children develop such advanced engineering skills? The answer reveals something profound about human learning that we've largely forgotten. Ice Age children learned by experimentation, not instruction. While adults were focused on proven survival methods, children had the mental freedom to ask, what if? What if we angle this bone differently? What if we combine these materials? What if we try something completely new? And because their survival depended on the results, they learned faster and more thoroughly than any children in human history. But here's what's truly remarkable. These children weren't just inventors, they were teachers. Evidence suggests that child-to-child knowledge transfer was more important for human survival than adult-to-child teaching. Children learned faster from other children. They communicated in ways adults couldn't understand. They developed techniques adults couldn't replicate. In essence, Ice Age children created their own survival culture, separate from but essential to adult survival. This created something unprecedented in the natural world, a species where the young taught the old. But there's a darker side to this story, one that explains why human childhood became so different from every other species on Earth. Ice Age childhood was dangerous beyond imagination. Children were expected to contribute meaningfully to survival from the moment they could walk. There was no period of protected innocence, no time for just being a kid, yet somehow this didn't break them. Instead, it created children with capabilities that seem almost superhuman by modern standards. Children who could track animals across miles of snow. Children who could predict weather changes days in advance. Children who could make life or death medical decisions without hesitation. But perhaps most remarkably, children who could maintain hope and creativity while surrounded by death and desperation. How did they do it? How did children facing constant trauma develop into innovative, optimistic, resilient humans instead of broken survivors? The answer lies in understanding something beautiful about the human spirit, something that Ice Age children discovered and that we carry within us today. They learn to find joy in the smallest victories, a successful hunt by a 10-year-old, a new tool design that worked, a story that made everyone laugh during a blizzard, a song that helped pass the long, dark hours. Ice Age children didn't wait for big moments to be happy, they created happiness from whatever was available. This isn't just heartwarming, it's revolutionary. Because this psychological certain skill, Finding joy in small moments while working toward larger goals became the foundation of human motivation and resilience. We're driven to keep trying because somewhere deep in our genetic memory, we remember being children who celebrated every small success while never losing sight of the bigger goal, survival. But there's one more aspect of Ice Age childhood that's been puzzling researchers for decades. Something that suggests these children had access to knowledge that we've lost. They seem to understand advanced concepts about physics, chemistry, and biology without formal education. How did the 12-year-old figure out that certain combinations of plants could preserve meat? How did children discover which stones produce the best sparks for fire starting? How did they develop sophisticated understanding of animal behavior and plant biology? Some researchers believe Ice Age children had what we might call intuitive science, the ability to understand natural principles through direct observation and experimentation, rather than formal instruction. They didn't need to memorize facts about thermodynamics. They could feel heat transfer through their hands and understand it instantly. They didn't need textbooks about animal psychology. They could read behavioral patterns in ways that allowed them to predict and influence animal actions. This intuitive understanding of natural principles might explain why human technology advanced so rapidly once we survived the Ice Age. We didn't have to discover science from scratch. We were rediscovering abilities our children had developed during the ultimate survival laboratory. But here's what's most important about this story. Those children didn't just survive, they thrived, they laughed, they played, they created art and music and stories that gave meaning to their struggles. They proved something that we sometimes forget today. Humans can endure almost anything if they maintain connection to joy, creativity, and each other. Are you starting to see why their story matters so much? Why understanding Ice Age children is the key to understanding human potential. Because inside every modern human is the descendant of a child who faced impossible odds and found a way not just to survive, but to innovate, create, and dream of a better future. That capacity is still in us, waiting to be awakened, ready to help us face whatever challenges come next. Coming up, we're about to explore the most ingenious survival tools ever created. Inventions so clever that modern survival experts study them to improve their own techniques. But first, hit that like button if this story of incredible children is inspiring you to think differently about human potential. Chapter 8: Tools of the Impossible. Imagine if I told you that 40,000 years ago, humans created tools that modern engineers call impossible when they try to replicate them with Stone Age technology. You'd probably think I was exaggerating, but I'm not, and what I'm about to show you will revolutionize your understanding of ancient human intelligence. Let me start with something that sounds simple but is actually mind-bending: the atlatl, or spear thrower. On the surface, it looks like just a stick with a hook on the end. But when modern physicists analyze its mechanics, they discover something extraordinary. It's a complex machine that uses multiple principles of physics to multiply human throwing power by up to 400%. That's right, a Stone Age tool that could quadruple human strength. But here's what makes it truly incredible. The optimal design ratios for an atlatl require advanced understanding of biomechanics, leverage physics, and projectile dynamics. Concepts that we didn't formally discover until the Renaissance. Yet Ice Age humans were building perfect atlatls thousands of years before we invented mathematics. How is this possible? How did people with no formal education create tools that required advanced engineering knowledge? The answer reveals something profound about human intelligence that we've largely forgotten. Ice Age humans didn't learn physics from textbooks. They learned it from life or death experimentation. When your survival depends on hitting a mammoth at 50 yards with a handmade spear, You don't just guess about angles and forces, you experiment, you refine, you perfect. And over generations, this practical experimentation led to tools that embodied advanced scientific principles without anyone understanding the formal science behind them. But the Atlatl is just the beginning. Archaeological sites have revealed Ice Age tools that challenge everything we think we know about ancient capabilities. Composite tools with multiple moving parts, precision instruments calibrated for specific tasks, even early automation, simple machines that could perform tasks without constant human input. Here's one that will blow your mind: the world's first refrigerator. In Siberian permafrost, archaeologists have discovered sophisticated food storage systems that use principles of thermal dynamics to maintain consistent temperatures year-round. These weren't just holes in the ground, they were engineered cooling systems with ventilation shafts, drainage systems, and insulation chambers. When modern food scientists studied these designs, they found principles that we didn't rediscover until the invention of mechanical refrigeration in the 1800s. 40,000 years ago, humans were building refrigerators that would work perfectly today. But perhaps the most incredible Ice Age invention was also the most controversial: the compound bow. Traditional archaeology claimed that complex bows weren't invented till much later in human history, but recent discoveries have shattered that assumption. In German caves, researchers have found evidence of sophisticated bow construction that used multiple materials, wood, sinew, horn, combined in ways that created composite tools with performance characteristics that rival modern archery equipment. These weren't simple hunting bows, they were precision instruments capable of accuracy and power that would be impressive even by today's standards. But here's what makes this discovery so controversial. The engineering required to build composite bows is incredibly advanced. You need to understand material properties, stress distribution, and dynamic loading in ways that suggest formal engineering knowledge. Yet these bows were being built by people who supposedly hadn't invented writing yet. This discovery has forced archaeologists to confront an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe ancient humans were much more sophisticated than we've assumed. Maybe the Stone Age wasn't primitive at all. Maybe it was a golden age of practical engineering that we've dramatically underestimated. But there's one more Ice Age tool that's been puzzling researchers for decades. Something so advanced that when modern scientists first studied it, they assumed it had to be a hoax. It's called the antler pressure flaker, and it represents perhaps the pinnacle of Stone Age precision technology. This tool was used to create stone blades so sharp and thin that they could cut through human hair. Blades so precisely made that modern knapping experts struggle to replicate them even with steel tools. The pressure flaker itself is a masterpiece of ergonomic design. It fits the human hand perfectly, distributes force evenly, and allows for control so precise that it can remove flakes of stone thinner than paper. When tool experts first studied preserved pressure flakers, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The level of craftsmanship was so high, the understanding of material properties so advanced, that it challenged every assumption about Stone Age capabilities. But here's what's truly remarkable. Analysis of wear patterns suggests these tools were used not just by master craftspeople, but by ordinary people, even children. This means that precision stone working, a skill that takes modern practitioners years to develop, was common knowledge in Ice Age communities. How did they achieve such widespread technical sophistication? How did primitive humans develop manufacturing capabilities that rival modern precision industries? The answer lies in understanding something we've lost in our modern world: the integration of daily life and technical excellence. Every tool had to work perfectly, or people died. Every innovation had to be practical, or it was abandoned. Every design had to be teachable, or it didn't spread. This created a culture of technical perfectionism that we can barely imagine today. A world where engineering excellence wasn't a luxury or specialty, but a basic survival requirement. But there's one more aspect of Ice Age. Toolmaking that's been troubling researchers, something that suggests these ancient engineers had access to knowledge that we've lost. Many Ice Age tools show evidence of heat treatment, controlled heating and cooling that alters the molecular structure of materials to improve their properties. This isn't just throwing things in a fire, this is precise temperature control, timing and chemistry that requires understanding of material science at the molecular level. Yet somehow Ice Age humans were performing metallurgy-level engineering on stone and bone materials thousands of years before we discovered metalworking. How did they develop such advanced material science? What knowledge did they have that we're only now rediscovering? The implications are staggering. Because if Ice Age humans had such sophisticated technical knowledge, what else might they have known that we've lost? Coming up next, we're exploring the ultimate test of Ice Age survival technology. What happened when winter never ended? How did humans survive climate disasters that lasted not just seasons, but generations? The answer involves innovations so remarkable that they might hold the key to surviving modern climate challenges. But first, if these ancient innovations are amazing you, hit that like button and tell me, what modern problem do you think Ice Age engineering could help us solve? Chapter 9: When Winter Never Ended. What I'm about to tell you happened 74,000 years ago, but it contains lessons that could save humanity today. It's the story of the ultimate survival test. What happens when winter doesn't end for years? I'm talking about the Toba supervolcanic eruption, an explosion so massive it launched enough ash into the atmosphere to block sunlight across the entire planet. Global temperatures dropped by 10 degrees Celsius. Growing seasons disappeared. The world entered a volcanic winter that lasted for decades, and it almost ended humanity forever. Genetic evidence suggests that the entire human population crashed to fewer than 10,000 individuals worldwide. We came closer to extinction than any large mammal species ever has and survived. How did we do it? How did scattered groups of Ice Age humans survive a global catastrophe that killed almost everything else on Earth? The answer reveals the most incredible survival innovations in human history. Techniques so advanced that modern survival experts are studying them to prepare for future climate disasters. Let me start with the most mind-blowing discovery. Ice Age humans didn't just survive the volcanic winter, they thrived during it. Archaeological sites from this period show evidence of technological acceleration. More sophisticated tools, better shelter designs, advanced food preservation methods, as if the ultimate survival challenge pushed human innovation to new heights. How is this possible? How did people facing extinction become more creative instead of just struggling to survive? The answer lies in understanding something profound about human psychology. Extreme challenges don't just test us, they transform us. When survival becomes impossible using normal methods, humans do something no other species can do. We transcend our limitations through pure creative will. The volcanic winter forced this transformation on a global scale, and the innovations that emerged didn't just save our ancestors, they laid the foundation for everything that makes us human today. Here's the first impossible innovation: underground agriculture. Yes, you heard that right. 74,000 years ago, humans figured out how to grow food underground using geothermal heat sources. In caves with natural springs, they created growing chambers where they could cultivate mushrooms, sprouts, and root vegetables even when the surface world was frozen solid. When modern agricultural scientists studied these ancient growing systems, they found techniques that we're only now rediscovering for sustainable farming. But underground agriculture was just the beginning. The volcanic winter also forced humans to develop what we might call calorie multiplication techniques. They learned to extract nutrition from sources that most animals can't use. Tree bark processing that made indigestible fiber into digestible calories. Bone fermentation that converted mineral content into usable nutrients. Even bacterial cultivation that created protein sources from seemingly dead organic matter. These weren't desperate survival measures. They were sophisticated biotechnology processes that required deep understanding of nutrition, chemistry, and biology. But perhaps the most remarkable innovation was psychological. They learned to maintain hope during hopelessness. Think about it. You're living through years of grey skies, failed harvests, and constant cold. Everyone you know is hungry. Many are dying. The world seems to be ending. How do you keep trying? How do you maintain the will to innovate and create when everything suggests there's no point? Ice Age humans discovered techniques for psychological resilience that we're only now beginning to understand through modern psychology research. They created meaning from suffering. They found beauty in the smallest things. They developed spiritual practices that gave purpose to struggle, but most importantly, they maintained faith in the future. Even when there was no evidence that things would ever get better, they kept working towards tomorrow. This psychological innovation might be the most important survival tool humans ever developed. Because without hope, all the technical innovations in the world are useless. But there's something else about the volcanic winter survivors that's been puzzling researchers for decades. Something that suggests they had capabilities we've lost. They seem to coordinate survival efforts across vast distances without any communication technology. Archaeological sites from the volcanic winter period show similar innovations appearing simultaneously across continents, as if humans in Africa, Europe, and Asia were all developing the same solutions at the same time. How is this possible? How could isolated groups develop identical technologies without any contact? Some researchers believe it's evidence of what we might call evolutionary synchronicity, the idea that when faced with identical challenges, human intelligence naturally develops similar solutions. Others think it suggests some form of long-distance communication that we don't understand. Possibly even primitive information networks that allowed knowledge sharing across continents. But the most intriguing possibility is that volcanic winter survivors developed enhanced intuitive abilities, the capacity to understand optimal solutions to survival challenges without formal learning or communication. This might sound mystical, but there's growing scientific evidence that extreme stress can activate dormant human capabilities. Enhanced pattern recognition, improved environmental sensitivity, even what some researchers call survival telepathy, the ability to sense optimal choices without conscious reasoning. Whatever the explanation, volcanic winter survivors emerged from the catastrophe with capabilities that were unprecedented in human history. They weren't just physically stronger or technically more skilled. They were psychologically transformed, more creative, more resilient, more capable of cooperation and innovation. In essence, they had evolved into modern humans. This is why understanding volcanic winter survival is so important. Because those innovations didn't just save our ancestors, they created the psychological and technical foundations that would eventually build civilization. Every capacity for innovation we have today, every ability to find solutions to impossible problems, every skill at cooperating during crises, it all traces back to those survivors who refused to give up when the world seemed to be ending. But here's what's most important for us today. The challenges we're facing now, climate change, resource scarcity, social breakdown are similar to what volcanic winter survivors faced, and the solutions they developed might be exactly what we need to survive our own impossible challenges. Are you starting to see why this ancient story matters so much for our modern world? Because we're not just descendants of survivors, we're carriers of survival wisdom that's been tested under the most extreme conditions imaginable. Coming up in our final chapter, we're exploring the ultimate question. What did these incredible survival experiences teach us about the meaning of being human? And how can their lessons help us face the challenges that lie ahead? But first, if this story of ultimate resilience is inspiring you, smash that like button and share this with someone who needs to remember how strong humans can be. Chapter 10: The Echo That Never Dies. We've travelled together through 40,000 years of human survival. We've seen impossible innovations, heartbreaking sacrifices, and incredible resilience. But now we come to the most important question of all. What does it mean that we're still here? Think about it. Every person listening to this right now is the descendant of someone who survived the worst conditions our planet has ever thrown at humanity. Ice ages, volcanic winters, plagues, famines, wars, disasters that killed 9% of everything that ever lived. Yet here you are, listening to stories on a device that would seem like magic to your ancestors, living in comfort that prehistoric kings couldn't imagine, facing challenges that are real and difficult, but nothing compared to what your bloodline has already survived. You are the echo that never dies, the continuation of an unbroken chain of survival that stretches back to the beginning of human consciousness itself. But that's not just a beautiful thought, it's practical knowledge. Because everything those ancestors learned about survival, innovation and resilience is still encoded in your DNA, still accessible through your instincts, still available when you need it most. Let me prove this to you with something that will blow your mind. Have you ever noticed that when you're in a truly dangerous situation, time seems to slow down? Your senses become sharper, your thinking becomes clearer, you find strength and capabilities you didn't know you had. That's not adrenaline, that's 40,000 years of survival programming activating. That's your Ice Age ancestors reaching across time to help you survive. Every time you've ever found a creative solution to an impossible problem, you are channeling the same innovative spirit that invented the needle, the atlatl, and underground agriculture. Every time you've ever endured suffering while maintaining hope for the future, you are accessing the same psychological resilience that carried humans through volcanic winters and ice ages. Every time you've ever sacrificed for someone you love, you are expressing the same cooperative instincts that kept small groups alive when the world was trying to freeze them to death. You're not separate from those ancient survivors, you are them continued into the present moment. But here's what's truly remarkable. The challenges that created all this survival wisdom aren't over. They're just different. Right now, humanity is facing new tests: climate change, resource depletion, social fragmentation, global pandemics, technological disruption. To some people, these challenges seem overwhelming, impossible, world-ending. But you know better now because you've heard the stories of people who faced truly impossible challenges and not only survived but used those challenges to become stronger, smarter and more connected to each other. The same innovative spirit that turned mammoth bones into architecture can turn modern problems into opportunities. The same psychological resilience that maintained hope during years of darkness can help us endure whatever difficult transitions lie ahead. The same cooperative instincts that kept small groups alive in blizzards can help us work together to solve global problems. The tools are still there, the wisdom is still available, the strength is still in your blood. But there's one more lesson from Ice Age survival that I need to share with you. The most important one of all. Those ancient survivors didn't just endure hardship, they found meaning in it. They transformed suffering into wisdom. They turned survival itself into a form of art, and that's why their stories still matter. Not just because they teach us how to survive, but because they teach us how to live with purpose, creativity, and connection even in the most difficult circumstances. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to activate that ancient wisdom. Every problem you solve adds to the survival knowledge that you'll pass on to future generations. Every act of resilience, innovation, or cooperation continues the unbroken chain that connects you to those first brave humans who decided that life was worth fighting for. You are their masterpiece, their ultimate innovation, the proof that their sacrifices worked, but you're also their continuation, the next chapter in the greatest survival story ever told. So when you face difficulties, remember, you come from people who survived ice ages. When you encounter problems that seem impossible, remember, you carry the DNA of humans who solved problems that actually were impossible. When you feel alone or afraid, remember, you are connected to an unbroken chain of survivors who faced far worse and never gave up. You are the echo that never dies, and your echo will continue long after your personal story ends, carrying forward the wisdom, strength, and resilience that have carried humanity through every challenge we've ever faced. That's not just inspiration, that's identity, that's purpose, that's the answer to why your life matters and why your struggles have meaning. You are the continuation of the greatest survival story ever told, and that story is still being written. Before we close this incredible journey together, I want to thank you for staying with me through all these hours of exploration. If you've made it this far, you've proven something important about yourself. You have the same curiosity and endurance that carried our ancestors through their darkest nights. Hit that subscribe button if you want to continue exploring these incredible stories of human resilience. Leave a comment telling me which part of this journey surprised you most. And share this with someone who needs to remember how strong they really are. Because in sharing these stories, you're doing something our ancestors would recognize. You're keeping the fire alive. You're passing on the wisdom. You're ensuring that the echo never dies. Sleep well tonight, knowing that you carry within you the strength of everyone who ever refused to give up. Dream of the incredible humans who came before you. And wake up tomorrow ready to continue their story with your own chapter of survival, innovation, and hope. The echo continues, and you are its voice.